Hello, good people. My name is Edna Morioki. I'm from Kenya. This is my story of how I lost my ear and sustained serious burns from a fire accident when I was 5 years old. It's not a short story, but I'll try to tell it as the Lord guides me. First of all, I want to tell you the motive of telling my story is not for people to pity me. I'm doing this because after so much prayer, asking God to help me realize my purpose here on earth, He has for sure let me know that this is His will for my life, that this is the reason why He rescued me from that near death ordeal. Just like my mom calls me, I am indeed a living testimony. I pray that God's glory will be revealed through my story because for sure, were it not for God, I wouldn't be here today. I have persevered and endured a lot since I was a child. Growing up, it has for sure not been easy. I have faced several unkind encounters at salons, with hairstylists, in school, in public, and until to date, it's not easy still. After watching this, I hope you realize how blessed you are to have zero scars or have all your body parts, and how blessed you are because you can decide to shave your hair today and just do it. And I, on the other hand, I can't shave my hair even if I wanted to, because since I was 5, my hair has been my shield for my scars. So I was born and brought up in a small village in Meru County. And so this is how this happened. Um, when I was 5 years old and it was time for me to join school, there was no school around our home at the moment. So what my parents did is they rented a house in the nearby market where there was a school, and have one of my aunties, my mom's sister who is late, stay in that house with me so I can be able to access school while my parents remained in the village. So my aunt and I were living in that rented house alone, and my parents would visit sometimes during the weekends or have us go visit them during the weekends. Um, so on this fateful day, I remember it was a rainy day, and my aunt had dressed me. It was around 7 p.m. My aunt lit up a charcoal jiko or stove which we were using to cook. She placed about a cup of water on the jiko for it to boil so she could make some tea. Apparently, it happened that there was no tea leaves in the house, and she had to go out to the shop to buy, and I couldn't go out with her as it was raining outside. So considering that it was very cold on that particular day, and that place is generally a cold place, that is in Timao near Nanyuki town. I had sat on a stool facing the jiko so I could warm myself a little bit. As a child, I used to fear inside the house if it was locked from outside. So I asked my aunt if I could lock from inside so that I don't fear. And also she was not going to take that long. So I locked the door from inside and went back to the stool next to the jiko. I had my aunt call our neighbor and asked her to help keep me engaged. That is like talk to me as I have locked myself from inside so that I do not fall asleep before she returns. The house was a wooden house, so there was no difficulty communicating with my neighbor. Honestly, from that point, I do not remember or know what happened because I woke up in the hospital like 3 days later. So this part of my story is what was explained to me as what really happened. So apparently, when my aunt went to the shop, she found that all the shops were closed, I think because of the heavy rains. So she decided to go to her sister's house that is Now another aunt of mine who was living in the same market, just a different block, to go and borrow the tea leaves. On getting to my auntie's house, she found them mourning the death of one of their uncles. They had just heard the news on a local radio station. Remember then, there was no telephones to communicate. So apparently, my aunt joined them in the morning and sort of forgot she had left me sitting by the charcoal jiko or the stove. I, on the other hand, in the house, I dozed off. I think because of the carbon monoxide produced by the charcoal. I fell on the jiko, and I think I poured the hot water on myself, and I think I had passed out before even falling, because the neighbor said that I did not cry immediately or scream. So the neighbor heard the sound of the sufuria, that is the metallic cooking pot, rolling on the floor. She tried calling me, but I did not answer. Mind you, had locked myself from inside all this while I was roasting. I was wearing a Marvin, but the kind that goes all the way to the neck. I don't know what to call it, but we call it mboshori. So the clothes are getting attached to my skin at this point. So the neighbor started screaming as I was not answering and trying to call for help or to find my aunt. So eventually the news reached my aunt's house, my aunt. So and they arrived as the door was being removed. They found me there, and I was lying there unconscious, and they say they could smell like the smell of burning meat. I don't know how, but some charcoal pieces had also fallen on me and were burning my clothes and skin. So you understand, this was in 1999. So there's no mobile communication. You have to do it physically. So they had to look for a vehicle to take me to the hospital. My aunt, who was working on a nearby place, ran to her work place to borrow the job's vehicle. Luckily, it was available. They came. Uh, and all this while, the people are trying to pour cold water on me uh, to try and separate my clothes from my skin. I was rushed to Nanyuki General Hospital, and I was told as the clothes were being removed, meat pieces were also falling because the clothes had stuck for long. Honestly, I don't remember all this. What I remember is after being conscious, I remember it was on a morning. My whole face was swollen. I couldn't completely see. I could not even speak. I was bandaged all over. I remember hearing my mom's voice as she was praying, and I tried speaking and asked if that was my mom, and asked for her to come closer so I could touch her. And my mom was wailing and crying because she thought I could not hear again. So I stayed in the hospital for around 2 to 3 months. And I can tell you that those were the worst months of my life. Um, the cleaning of the wounds every morning, the removing of the bandages. So this is where the mistake came by. You understand, this is a public hospital. During that time, like it was not sectioned or separated so that burns victims could be admitted differently, because I remember I was admitted on the same bed with a TB patient child. So we were sleeping on the same bed, the other TB child and her mom and my aunt. Apparently, my mom could not stay with me at the hospital because my little sister was only a few months old and she could not leave her behind. So it used to be hectic. So apparently the doctors had I had to have my wounds bandaged all the time, uh, so that my wounds do not get infected, because there were other people with different sicknesses in the same ward. So so I used to be bandaged, washed every morning. I can tell you the pain was unbearable, and you have to be conscious when those wounds were being washed. So as they continued to bandage my wounds, that is, I don't know how, but one day my aunt did not, she didn't used to accompany me when I was being washed, because she was so pitiful. So one day she decided to follow along, and that is when she realized that the ear was almost falling off. There was a little bit of a piece left there. This was contributed by the heat of being bandaged full time. It was heartbreaking, especially for my parent. I can remember that day my dad was so heartbroken when he realized that my ear had fallen off. Um, it's 25 years later, so the scars have really improved. It's not how they were. Actually, I used to be, this part of my shoulder was attached to my neck. I could not turn freely.